Tales from the Black Mountains. Once upon a time, in a place not too far away, there was a land of rugged hills and towering mountains, dancing streams and endless rivers, valleys deep and caves dark, magic, wonder, and worlds apart from the normal and the mundane. A land where dragons roam and creatures speak, trees whisper and heroes sleep. This is the land of the Black Mountains, deep in the heart of Wales, the wind of the sleeping sails, for when night descends and your dreams whisk you away, there is nowhere better to journey and forget the troubles of a day. Let your body relax and walk side by side with the voice of the mountains. Let me be your guide. Tonight our tale once again takes us up the great river, along the mountain side, up beyond the last farm and to the forest wide, where little Johnny Morgan and red-breasted Larry have been making their merry way. Full of hope for the journey ahead, they've travelled well throughout the day. They quickly passed the valley walls and craggy knoll, barely stopped over Wynvach and felt no toil as they entered the forest. Now this forest goes by many names here in the Black Mountains, some old, some new. It has existed here for ages through storm, snow, war and peace. It is said only the mountains have known more time than these ancient oak, ash, yew and beech. But to you and to me, whatever we're told, it will always be the forest, wise and old. It is underneath their canopies that we join our friends, as they wind their way through the wooden sentinels, following the twists and bends of a woodland path, a path that has just come to an end. Seeing no clear way to go, little Johnny Morgan for the first time begins to feel a panging in his chest. In his valley home he was never lost, afraid or far away from the rest of his family and his friends. The days had never felt as dark in the valley as the sun struggled to send its arc of light down to the forest floor. Had this really been it? Had he really wanted to see more? These trees are not the trees standing wide and tall who helped him with their echoed calls. They are older, and the language they speak cannot be understood by those with wings and a beak. Turning to Larry, however, his worries began to fade, as the smile on her face reminded him to pervade his inner worries. He had a friend close at hand who knew these parts and the ways of this land. Be patient, Johnny Morgan, we are not lost. This is the path we were meant to have crossed. A place often seems scary when it is unknown, but no harm will come to us from wood or stone, not here amongst the trees, wise and old. So be at ease, Johnny Morgan, we are not alone. A rustling from the trees to their side took Johnny by surprise, but filled Larry with delight. As day turned to night, they greeted a rough and ready air. Harry's the name. Guiding strangers is me game, he instantly shared, hopping to Johnny Morgan and holding out a scar-covered paw. His fur was uneven, and he had only one ear, but the look in his eyes cast no fear. Journey with me and you'll come to no harm. Sometimes it's better not to judge a book by its cover. Larry, it's good to see you. And Johnny, is it? Well, don't worry, these trees look big and the path may not be clear, but stick with me and I'll steer you out of the forest. I know the night is young, but we should keep moving. There are some who roam in this forest at night, who love nothing more than to give a fright to those sleeping softly on the ground. Sleep by day, walk by night, that's the secret of this fight. And so the three continued on, with Harry their hair guiding them along. Shafts of crystal moonlight lit the way through the mottled, moss-strewn floor, and the twisted, taut majesty of the tree trunks. Over and under the dingles and streams, ducking and weaving bushes and branches, all through the night they carried on, until just before dawn a crash ahead caused Harry to warn the others to stop. Following his instructions, they quickly dipped behind the trunk of a giant oak, and not 20 feet ahead of them there broke what can only be described as a giant mole into view. Its eyes were small and surrounded by crusty earth, its two front teeth terrible and long, its claws sharp, filthy, and wickedly strong. Its nose, however, is its most concerning of features, as it restlessly checks for the scent of sleeping creatures to enjoy as a midnight treat. Harry beckoned for them to follow as he hopped to go another way, ready to take the travellers safe away, but little Johnny Morgan, enchanted by the beast, stood transfixed, began to look like its feast. Nothing alike had he ever seen before, and as he tried to move away, he found he could not. He was moonstruck. The nose began to sniff in his direction. Johnny desperately tried to run, but he was stuck, and there was no chance the mole would go and try its luck in some other part of the forest. This was not the valley Johnny Morgan called home. And the mole, detecting the smell of his fear, began to move ever nearer to that poor little sheep. Would this be the final chapter for little Johnny Morgan, far away from his family and all his friends? Nearly all his friends. Seeing the situation, Aleri did not wait. She burst into the air, singing her song, chirping and calling with all the aplomb that a small robin can. The sweet chirping was enough to confuse the mole, who was used to silence down in his hole. The sweet birdsong cutting through his senses, confusing his restless nose, and began to drive the mole back, sending the beast away to the east as it clawed a track away from the tireless voice of Aleri. Little Johnny Morgan at last could move freely.
My dear Aleri, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I could not move, I could not start. I knew that mole would take my heart in his claws. You saved my life, you risked yours. Why, Aleri? Because that's what friends are for.
They continued on, Aleri resting nestled in the wool on Johnny Morgan's back, and before long the dappled dew falling thickly on their wool, their fur and their feathers finally announced the dawn. The new day greeted them in a clearing, free from the canopy, the sun basking their tired faces. Now for rest, pronounced Harry. The three tired travellers lay down on the floor to rest their weary bones and snore. Little Johnny Morgan fell asleep without pause, unused to the strain of travelling day and night the cause. His weary body snuggled tightly into the roots of a tall and sprightly beech tree. However, Aleri and Harry did not sleep, and as the sun rose they chose to speak. You intend to go to the waterfall, yes?
Indeed.
climb on a day and pass Dewey's Causeway? You know the score. That is how to reach our journey's end. And after a pause that would have chilled Johnny Morgan to his core. May the mountains be with you. Be careful, my friend. And with that, Harry the Hare pointed to a path on the far side of the clearing, bowed his head, and hopped away to guide some more along the way, through the trees, along the road, where Johnny Morgan and Larry had already been showed, and their journey through the forest was coming to a close. So join me next time to hear what left there is to hear from little Johnny Morgan and his brave and dear friend Larry. Into the green-flecked forests and alongside star-startled streams, up amongst the mountain thrones thrust into the sky, and through the frosted fern tips and burning breath of howling wind, we will return again. Know'st thou, friend?